גדולה מן המדבר. דודי לי ואני לא הרועד בשושנים. דודי לי מכותרת מור, מור ולבונה, מור ולבונה. דודי לי, דודי לי ואני לא הרועד בשושנים. דודי לי. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Dodi Lee sings about Shabbat as a bride. This is a love song that involves Shabbat. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to the drash, which will come a little bit earlier in our service than usual today because it pertains to a little bit to Lecha Dodi. So I'd like to share those words with you before we reach Lecha Dodi. In any case, you might take this moment to wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. Feel free to do that in the chat. We'd love to see your chats come through. I don't get to see them until after the service, but I do love to see them in the end because it just reminds me that we're all together in this, and it really means a lot. So in any case, tonight is a Shabbat of comfort, known as Shabbat Nachamu, which immediately follows Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, when we pivot from a mood of admonition to a mood of consolation that carries us through the next 7 weeks, actually, until Rosh Hashanah. On Tisha B'Av, I had a Shiva candle kindled in my home overnight and was reminded of just how comforting that glow actually is during the evening hours. In lighting our Shabbat candles this evening, we honor Sue Levy and Steve Freeman, who are observing Yahrzeit for their dear father, Walter Freeman. And we hope that they and others who are either in mourning or observing Yahrzeit will be joining us for the recitation of Kaddish in our Zoom Shiva Minyan at 7:20 this evening, when we'll recite Kaddish as a minyan. In their honor of Steve and Sue, in memory of their father Walter, I just invite all of you to strike your match at home now and join me in our candle lighting. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At this time, I invite you to, along with me, remove your wristwatch if you're wearing one. If not, maybe you can just kick off your shoes or do whatever helps you separate the work week from Shabbat and helps you make that transition from ordinary time to sacred time. I'll give you a moment to do whatever that is. Maybe it involves closing a door to your home office. Maybe it involves turning off the light in the kitchen. I'm not sure, but everybody's got something, I think, that helps them turn off and tune into Shabbat. My question of the week was, what's comforting? What brings comfort on this Shabbat Nachamu, this Shabbat of comfort? I invite you to write in your responses on the chat. You're welcome to do that now, and share with each other what you feel is comforting. One person wrote in earlier today and said, comforting to me always means others, such as strangers, family, and friends, reducing one another's sadness by showing sincere thoughtfulness in a quiet, unassuming manner. So I'm curious what it is for each of you. We'll proceed with our Kabbalat Shabbat with Psalm 95 rolling into Psalm 96 and then Psalm 97. Lechuneranena ladonai naria litzur yishenu nekadma fanav betoda bizmirot naria lo shimu ladonai shir kadash shiru ladonai kol haaretz shiru ladonai baruch shemo basru miyom liyom yeshu na na na. Ya na na na. Ya na na na. Ya na na na. Ya na na na. Adonai malach tagel haaretz yismachu iyim rabim anan va'arafel svivav tzedek umishpat mechon kiso. Oh, that's a bit low. We'll get it right eventually. Or zaru ala tzadik, o yishrelev simcha, simchu tzadikim ba'Adonai, lehodu lezecher kodsho ya'elai. Or zaru ala tzadik, o yishrelev simcha, simchu tzadikim ba'Adonai, lehodu lezecher kodsho. Zaru ala tzadik, o yishrelev simcha, simchu tzadikim ba'Adonai, lehodu lezecher kodsho ya'elai. Or zaru ala tzadik, o yishrelev simcha, simchu tzadikim ba'Adonai, lehodu lezecher kodsho ya'elai. Na 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 na, na na na, ya'elai, ya na 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 na. This week, I did a presentation for the Sydney Jewish Museum on the topic of hamakom, a word that means place, the place. But this word is also a name for God. We say hamakom yanachem etchem, may God comfort you. That word, hamakom, has this connection between God and place, which is a curious one and a source of some differences of opinion, both ancient and contemporary. This is a time of year when place is top of mind in our national consciousness because the holiday of Tisha B'Av, which commemorates the destruction of our people's sacred place, our temple, happened this past week, and our displacement from the Holy Land and the holy city of Jerusalem. So this idea of place is at the forefront of our minds this week. In the museum presentation, I spoke about a rather distressing passage from the Zohar, which is a 13th century mystical Jewish text, which suggested that we cannot be heard by God when we are in exile. When we're in exile, we are in a frustrating, agonizing circumstance where voice and words are separated from each other. This is what this Zohar passage says. Kol and dibor, sound and speech, are separate from each other. If you have one, you can't have the other when you're in exile. That was the view expressed in this text. It's kind of, and both of these are needed if we're to reach God, that we need to be able to enunciate and be heard. Being in exile, therefore, is kind of like the sort of nightmare where you have that sensation of calling out for help, but being paralyzed with sleep and being unheard. It's a bit like being muted on Zoom. So when we're in exile, God is deaf to our prayers and praises and atonements, which is problematic. It's a very problematic theology because it means that we can't get ourselves out of this mess of exile. This dreadful state of affairs is echoed in a reading, the reading of Isaiah, which falls the Shabbat just before Tisha B'Av, so last Shabbat, when Isaiah the prophet, speaking on behalf of God, says, "Even though you multiply your prayer, I do not hear." So the theology of voicelessness was not just confined to the Jewish mystics who studied Zohar. But then, this Shabbat, after Tisha B'Av each year, this Shabbat Nachamu, our people experience a spiritual pivot. A spiritual pivot. This Shabbat is known as Nachamu, a Shabbat of comfort, because Isaiah, this week, Isaiah himself stops preaching doom and starts speaking words of comfort to God's people. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Be comforted, my people. Be comforted. Even the mystics made a spiritual pivot eventually. The 16th century Kabbalists, having endured centuries of feeling voiceless and unable to reach God, they came up with a different theology. A different theology of exile that was different from this more hopeless one about being muted and impotent to change God's mood. In 16th century mystical Jewish thought, we see developing a Jewish theology of empowerment. The 16th century Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics who had been exiled from Spain, believed that their own sense of exile was felt on high, in the heavens, because an aspect of God was also in exile. God's nurturing feminine aspect, called Shekhinah, was separated from God. And every Shabbat, on Friday evening, at this time, if human beings welcomed Shabbat in the right way, if the Jewish people welcomed Shabbat in the right way and with the right intention, there would be a divine reunion in the cosmos. This is why we sing of Shabbat as a bride in Lecha Dodi every Friday night. This is the moment of passionate joining of bride and groom. And if divine exile ended, then human exile would likely end too. The upper and the lower realms, the earthly and the heavenly, may be vastly different and distant from one another, but the actions in one realm could impact what transpired in the other. The people no longer believed themselves to be completely powerless. Powerlessness doesn't sit well with the human spirit. We don't accept it easily, nor for too long a time. Our people suffered the powerlessness of exile and landlessness for millennia. If we endured it spiritually, it's because we were in protest every time we pivoted from a theology of impotence to a theology of effectiveness. Every time we developed and articulated a theology that our actions matter and can impact, in fact, the whole universe. Every Erev Shabbat we make this spiritual pivot, expressing our theology of human effectiveness in Lecha Dodi, as we rejoice with God in the return of the Shabbat bride, God's nurturing presence. Spiritually, our exile ends each and every Shabbat. Raising our voices in song, we sing, Uri, Uri, wake up, arise. The nightmare of exile is ending. Shir daberi, speak out a song. We are no longer muted and voiceless. Boi chala, boi chala. Enter our Shabbat bride and bring us home. This time in our service, we traditionally extend our condolences to those most recently bereaved among us, saying, Hamakom yenachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avilei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you alongside all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Tonight especially, we think of the family of George Higgins, for whom we will sadly begin reciting Kaddish next week after his funeral on Sunday, this coming Sunday. As well, we think of the Conyers and the Louis, who are remembering their dear friend, Jack Berman. We will join on a Kaddish call at 7:20 when we'll be reciting Jack's name along with those we're remembering on this Shabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uven layla, Adonai tzivaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. The blessing Hama'ariv Aravim speaks about kind of the order of things that happen every day, really, and what happens at the end of evening, specifically, what happens at twilight. And I know that the pigeons are usually outside the sanctuary all day, but we really become aware of them in the evenings. I feel like along with the rising of the moon and the rotation of the stars, the pigeons outside our sanctuary here are kind of a part of the whole, I don't know, what God set in motion at the beginning of time that has just continued. We can hear them. We can hear them in here. I can hear them. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot hukimu mishpatim, otanu limadata. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochbenu u'v'kumenu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu v'orech yamenu, u'v'hem nege yomam v'layla, v'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uv'isharecha. Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim le'elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiyot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Adonai Elohechem emet. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. And then shall we rejoice, as all Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakol. kodesh, Nora tehilot, O sefele, Nora tehilot, O sefele. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze Eli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Thus it is said, God redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Blessed are you, Eternal One, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. At this time in our service, we pray for all those in our world in need of healing, whether of body, mind, or spirit. And in our own community on this Shabbat, that includes Lena Torsch, Dennis Lewis Enright, Tamara Wolf, Chaim Steinberg, Rebecca Dreyfus, Dot Tebum, Ern Isles, Gali O'Connor, Molly and Bossie Pakin, Christine Lucas, and Noah Fox. We hold them in our thoughts and prayers of healing on this Shabbat. And if there are others that you're thinking of, I invite you to just whisper their names in your homes at this time. And our blessing applies to all. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, hu yivarech otam. May the one who blessed our ancestors bring them blessing too, and a refuah shlema, complete healing. We join in prayer that they may all lie down in peace and rise up to life renewed. Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shelomecha, ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shelomecha. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה המתים. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. We turn now to Aleinu. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו ככם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. I'd like to turn the bima over now to Julia Selby, our treasurer, who will share a few announcements with you.
Thank you, Rabbi Nicole. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. On behalf of the board, I wish long life to those in mourning and those observing a yahrzeit. In exciting news, face-to-face services will be recommencing in the sanctuary this Shabbat morning. Attendance is by pre-registration only, and you must pre-register by 9 a.m. on Thursday. Details of pre-registration and safety information are in the email. Our Shabbat evening services on Fridays and the Zoom Kaddish will continue online as they have been, but we still have the opportunity to wish each other Shabbat Shalom in the chat section. There are a number of upcoming events which are listed in this week's e-Hatikva, including the Zoom links. But you won't need a Zoom link for Sunday morning between 9 and 12 when the gardening team is in action at NSTE. It's forecast to be 19 degrees and a lovely day, and you're invited to join them for any time that you can spare to help work in our garden. Also on Sunday from 12 to 1, the Torah study group will be meeting through Zoom as they do each Sunday. And on Sunday from 3 to 4, Sue Beecher is presenting on Zoom a session on Rav Kook, mystic, philosopher and Talmudic scholar. Sue Beecher also presents meditation sessions on Tuesdays and Fridays. On Wednesday the 5th of August at 11 o'clock, the Boomers Book Club will be meeting through Zoom. And on Sunday the 9th of August at 5 o'clock, Jews for Social Action is presenting a webinar with Thomas Mayer in conversation with Mark Tedeschi talking about the Uluru Declaration from the Heart. It should be very interesting. Shabbat Shalom everyone, and I hope you keep safe and well.
Thanks, Julia. We're going to conclude with a song of empowerment. Ani ve'ata, you and I can change the world. And then all will join us. Do a very quick Kiddush because we've got to transition to our Zoom Kaddish call in just a moment, but we are going to make Kiddush. So if you've got your wine or grape juice, we are going to say a little bracha, a blessing. Vayi erev vayi boker yom hashishi vayichulu hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'chol tzevam Vayichal Elohim bayom hashvi'i melachto asher asa. Vayishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa. Vayivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i. Vayikadesh oto. Ki bo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asod. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziyat mitzrayim, כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. לחיים. Shabbat Shalom.